In the darkness, deep within the inner world known as the Astral Plane, Hisako has become a thrall, and it's the same alternate world that our heroes find ourselves in. Mori, Natsu, Kanon, and Nico are trapped here. Trapped, but not defeated. In fact, Kanon is more than happy to throw down with the mind-controlled Hisako as she calls for the once timid girl to come at her in this domain. Hisako obliges as she hops on a motorcycle and surrounds herself with a more lethal version of her usual armor-like mutant ability. She's no longer just armor, she's now dark armor. Kanon continues to talk smack at Hisako and forgets that you should stop running your mouth and just throw hands, leaving her open for the girl on the motorcycle to nearly run her through. Thankfully, Nico has more sense than to talk trash without a solid game plan. Their first order of business to separate dark armor from her bike. So the mutant mystic hurls her staff right at Hisako. Nico shows she's got the touch when her staff's loop lobs right into dark armor's head. Kanon springs into action for cleanup duty and yanks it, which successfully crashes their mind-controlled friend away from her motorcycle and right into the ground. But dark armor's just getting started. With a bit of psychic suggestion from Kageyama, the girl gets back on her feet and prepares for another round. This makes Kanon and the others wonder if Hisako's even alive in there, or if she's now a bona fide meat puppet for the creepy Hikikomori Shadow King pulling her strings. But our heroes don't get an answer. Instead, dark armor just stands up, no emotion, no words, nothing. Again, Kageyama influences his thrall as he plays on Hisako's insecurities. All the while, the Shadow King pulls out another one of his puppets, this time in the shape of a Maystorm, Fujiwara. He tells his two pawns to take care of the girls as Fujiwara lunges at them. Seeing this, Mori wastes no time to pull the bandage from her left eye and shoot the Fujiwara marionette with her optic blast. She misses, but her eye beam hits Kageyama's hand to do a bit of damage. Still, our heroes are far from safe as they notice that more figures surround them, each one wearing a robe brandishing the Children of the Atom symbol. The girls fend them off, but they keep on coming. Things go their way when May suddenly steps in wearing her Maystorm outfit to help her friends. As always, May's oozing main character energy as she declares that she'll never let the likes of Kageyama and Fujiwara steal their future. However, it's almost like Kageyama planned for this exact moment, as he rejoices about the fact that all the pieces are now in place. Pieces he calls his family. From there, Kageyama tries to pitch our heroes to join his side, but May knows better than to trust this guy. So she refuses and declares she'll unite all mutants instead of letting them become Kageyama's pawns. Dark Armor hears all of this and is not too pleased. She unleashes her inner angsty teenager. She attacks the group, prompting the girls to counter with each of their mutant abilities. But it doesn't even leave a scratch on Dark Armor. Even worse, this whole clash makes them fail to notice that the hooded Children of the Atom members have taken Mori and are now stuffing her into one of their suitcases. Nico and Natsu instantly react when they see this, as Nico uses her magic to pull Mori back to their side. But whether it's an illusion or not, tragedy strikes when Natsu catches Mori, only to realize that their cute little friend had turned into a vile viscera similar to the contents of the cult's notorious meat cases. Meanwhile, Kanon takes off her gi and tells Dark Armor something along the lines of, "I was hoping I didn't have to use this technique, but I'm gonna do it anyway." Natsu is clearly distraught over seeing her best friend turn into a pile of gore, but there's no time to mourn, as Nico pulls Natsu out of the way so that Kanon can cook. Kanon summons all her powers and channels it into her baseball bat, turning it into a giant psychic blade that she uses to cleave Dark Armor. The two girls duel while Kageyama stands behind Hisako with an unnerving smile. Back in the real world, even Fujiwara remarks that this is the first time he's seen the creepy guy crack a smile. We see that both Hisako and Kageyama's bodies are suspended inside of one of the Children of the Atom's chambers. As Fujiwara watches the two children float in the fluid, he thinks that the key to ruling the world lies in controlling their emotional states. As the Maester puts it, the Children of the Atom are born again. Fujiwara starts clacking away at his computer and discovers that Hisako's abilities are tied to her emotions. More clearly, the more intense her emotional states get, the more powerful she becomes. Viper's in the room too, and she wonders if it's the same quality that made Kageyama stalk Hisako in the first place. More importantly, she clarifies with the Maester if the two kids are the solution for their so-called MYX project. Fujiwara reassures her that they are, especially since Kageyama handpicked Hisako to be his chosen one. Still, this is not enough to convince Viper. She gets antsy and demands results from the cult leader, to which Fujiwara insists he's working as fast as he can. Any further strain on either Kageyama or Hisako would only mess things up. Nobody likes a micromanager, but that's exactly what Viper does here, as she continues to pressure Fujiwara into delivering results under the threat of eliminating him completely. Back on the astral plane, we see that Kanen's clash with Dark Armor ended with her knocking out Hisako. Kanen's a bit worse for wear, but things get extra dicey when a figure suddenly appears before the girls. This time, it's a so-called first mutant, still tied to his X-shaped crucifix and blabbering about whether he was able to save them. Kageyama turns to the first mutant, and in a gruesome scene of pure bloody horror goodness, the first mutant's skin begins to stretch and tear. Noriko then emerges from his mangled body and wastes no time to start some smoke with May. May obliges and the two square up for a fight. Noriko lunges at her with electricity-charged claws, and it's here that Peach Momoko turns this X-Men series into a full-blown manga, as we find out that May now has names for her techniques. Specifically, she counters Noriko's attack with an ability called Hanakaze, and it's literally as advertised, a technique that allows May to summon a gust of wind with flower petals. Noriko manages to dodge May's Hanakaze technique before driving her supercharged fist right into her opponent. Kanen sees this and tries to come to her friend's aid, but Nico tells her to just let May handle this. In the middle of the battlefield, Noriko thinks she's got the better of May, but she's immediately put in her place when she notices that she had a copy of May made from flower petals, because right now, the real Maystorm is in the air, ready to land on top of Noriko with another one of her techniques called Hanafuba Kick. May's lightning-charged kick lands on Noriko, but the mutant delinquent is able to block it with her gauntlets. She then gears up for another supercharged attack. Meanwhile, Kanen and Nico realize that Noriko is able to channel her powers through her headband's cute antennae, which then act as condensers for a mutant ability. So Nico calls on Natsu to shoot the darn things with her optic blast, but Natsu's in the middle of a PTSD episode, still devastated from what happened to Mori. This forces Nico to grab Natsu by the head and point her left eye towards Noriko's headband. The gambit works and Noriko gets knocked out. All of a sudden, a group of Children of the Atom members wearing hazmat suits approach the downed Noriko and literally start chopping her up before putting her pieces inside a garbage bag. The whole display almost makes May hurl, but she immediately comes to when she feels Dark Armor's hand grab her by the helmet. May is able to escape Dark Armor's grasp in the nick of time, and Hisako starts berating May for being a naive little girl who thinks that she can unite all of mankind. But May is a hero right to her core. She remains resolute in her decision to be a symbol of hope to all other mutants out there, because that's what an X-Men does. May then tries to get through to her friend, but their conversation is cut short when a gigantic, characterized version of Tsubasa appears in the horizon and starts talking to Hisako. Hisako then has a flashback from her time in Kurigaga Minanami Middle School, back when she was still a sophomore and Tsubasa was still alive. Tsubasa then asks her if she liked the omamori he gave Hisako, and she tells him that she does. 3 months pass, and we see an apologetic Hisako begging Tsubasa's forgiveness for losing the omamori. But then, just a bit later, a few of Hisako's classmates find the charm behind one of the lockers, and these guys start talking smack about the omamori, pretty much calling anyone who owns it a creep. Tsubasa notices that it's the same omamori he gave to Hisako, and they hear this and throw the thing in Tsubasa's head. Meanwhile, Hisako does nothing to defend him. Before she leaves the classroom though, Kageyama walks up to Hisako and hands her the omamori. Hisako refuses this and tells him it's not hers, something that Tsubasa is disappointed to hear. All of a sudden, Hisako falls to her knees, and in another weird turn of events, the same omamori bursts out of her mouth before it dissipates and transforms into black goo that envelops Hisako's head. All the while, Kageyama looks at her and gives her his trademark creepy smile. Back in the real world, it's the first day of the school year for the kids at high school. Nico and Mori are now sophomores, and Mori's not too happy that they're not in the same class anymore. They have more pressing matters to attend to, however, as the two girls head to a public restroom. They dress into casual clothes before wearing a couple of masks. Somewhere else, desperate influencer Yukio rushes to her apartment after receiving a call from her sidekick. She finds out that her home's been ransacked before asking her homeboy if he already called the cops. Her sidekick tells her he was going to, but he knows how much of a sucker for video views his boss is, so the two then prepare to film the apartment. Yukio's sidekick tells her that they should have just stuck to covering the #ArmorGirl news story instead of sticking their unqualified noses into shady government business. But in true nuisance streamer fashion, Yukio doesn't care about any of that. All that matters is that she gets to make content out of this whole ordeal. In another part of town, May presides over another meeting with her mutant youth group. Nico and Mori have snuck their way into this gathering as the group talks about how the children of the Atom have been causing problems again. The meeting ends and all the others leave except for Nico and Mori. May doesn't even recognize them right away, but Nico stops playing around and tells her friend that she knows May has been looking for Hisako and Natsu too. They also find out that Kanen has been attending the meeting as she butts in and pries into the girl's business. Nico explains that she's read through her grandma's old journal and discovered something called the Astral Plane. Pair that with the weird eye in the sky that they recently saw, and Nico concludes that Kageyama must have taken Hisako to the Astral Plane. Meanwhile, at a cafe in yet another part of town, Kanen's big brother, Tatsuya, meets a girl with brown and white hair. We soon find out that this woman's name is Futaba. She's been working this whole time with Tatsuya to dig into the children of the Atom's shady dealings. Right now, Futaba tells him that she's finally uncovered the truth behind the cult's secret project, MYX. Futaba tells Tatsuya that everything they found so far, like the whole meat case controversy, all leads back to the MYX project. She goes on to say that MYX mentions the astral plane and its ultimate goal is to create a master race called Homo Superior. Futaba warns Tatsuya that there's no guarantee they may come out of this on the other side if they decide to dig further into this matter. We then get a shocker when Tatsuya reveals that he had already quit working as a cop since this whole deal with the children of the Atom happened, so he doesn't have any access to police intel should they decide to proceed investigating. However, Futaba tells him that she has a girl on the inside. Tatsuya is shocked when he learns that this is the same mole who also happens to be one of Kanen's friends. But what really drives him over the edge is when he realizes his sister even has friends at all. Meanwhile, at a temple of the Children of the Atom in Oku, Kurosaki City, we find out that Nico has signed on to the cult to continue their search for Hisako and Natsu. She has assumed a fake identity, with everyone in the cult calling her Miss Grimm, but we also find out that she has yet to take an important step in the group's indoctrination process, something that they call the endowment. As such, one of the cult's functionaries insists that Nico receive this after the next Children of the Atom service. Later, Fujiwara holds another one of his freaky sermons and gets ready to give the young members of the cult this so-called endowment. Meanwhile, Nico continues to ask about the Maester, but the other kids don't give her any information. When it's time for them to line up for the endowment, Nico decides to leave the rest of the group and do some snooping on her own. She uses her grandma's old journal to make her way through the temple's hallways. She eventually reaches a room where she overhears Fujiwara and the other cult member reviewing the files they have on the kids and choosing which one is the best draft prospect for their group. But what really piques Nico's interest is when she hears Fujiwara mention Hisako and Kageyama's name. That same day, Nico has lunch at the temple's mess hall where she's approached by Noriko, who thinks that she's seen Nico in the past. But Nico is able to maintain her cover and insists that they've never met. She then introduces herself to Noriko as Grimm. Meanwhile, deep within the temple, we find Kageyama in a trance as he sits motionlessly inside a glass chamber. Fujiwara and Viper watch the boy do his thing as the Maester explains that Kageyama calls this process the sacred initiation. Fujiwara also reveals that all that stuff Kageyama puts on him, like the bowl on his head and the pieces of paper with Hisako's face, they really don't have anything to do with his powers, but as the Maester puts it, better just give him what he wants so that he can continue working towards their goals. What Fujiwara and Viper are more concerned about is Hisako. As he puts it, they really need to bring her back to consciousness for fear that Kageyama might lose interest in the girl if she remains out of commission. Viper, being the boss lady that she is, contributes nothing useful to the conversation and instead just demands Fujiwara to find a way to wake Hisako up. What they don't realize is Kageyama is currently making moves of his own as he calls out to someone named Akihiro. We soon learn that Akihiro happens to be none other than the so-called first mutant. Right now, Fujiwara and his lackeys are preparing to give one of their young cult members the endowment, which we learn is a process that involves Akihiro. In another part of town, Kanen and Mori are just doing a bit of mischief under the bridge when Mori suddenly starts shivering and sensing Akihiro's presence. Kanen tries to help her, but our girl freaks out. Later, Kanen and Mori go to May, where Mori explains that she saw Akihiro's face while they were under the bridge. What's more disturbing is when Mori tells her friends that she saw Akihiro ripping her body to pieces. Her vision also included an image of the Children of the Atom symbol, which Mori claims is a gateway. But most importantly, Mori tells May and Kanen that she saw Hisako there as well. This makes May conclude that they could finally locate Hisako if they get to Akihiro, to which Kanen says that they're gonna need Nico for this mission. Unknown to the three girls, a mysterious figure is stalking them nearby. Kanen senses their presence but sees nothing when she checks outside their house. At the cafe, Futaba gives Tetsuya a briefing about Akihiro. According to her, not only is Akihiro known as the first mutant, but he also happens to be the Children of the Atom's first test subject. What's worse is that Futaba has caught wind that Kanen and her friends are looking for someone who was kidnapped by the cult pertaining to Hisako. In the end, Futaba concludes that the key to getting to the bottom of this mess is Akihiro. Our story then moves the clock back to 4 months ago, where we see Mori and Nico rushing to her apartment. The two girls discover that the apartment has been trashed and Hisako's nowhere to be found. Nico spots Hisako's omamori, which gives them all the answers they need. Their friend has been kidnapped. Curiously, Hisako's omamori suddenly turns into a black blob with eyes a moment after Nico touches it. They decide to visit a cafe to think about their next step. Mori proposes they contact Hisako's mom, but that's off the table since they have no way of unlocking her phone. Ultimately, Nico tells Mori that they should just go back to her apartment for now. At the same time, Futaba steps into the cafe and passes by the two girls. Futaba's interest is piqued when she overhears Nico mention the Children of the Atom. She then spots Nico's grandma's journal in the booth the two girls were sitting in. Not long after, Futaba catches up to Nico and Mori to return the journal. The three get introduced to one another and Futaba takes them to the cafe to talk about the Children of the Atom. Ultimately, Futaba returns Nico's book and tells the girls to contact her if they ever get into a pinch. Later, Mori and Nico make their way back to the apartment when Mori sees news about a new mutant group called the X-Men, which has been operating against the Children of the Atom this whole time. Nico instantly recognizes that May is behind the X-Men after recalling their conversation about what they should call their gang. In the present, Nico continues to be a mole inside the Children of the Atom. She spots a girl in the corner who's hunched over crying. One of the kids tells Nico that the girl is one of the cult's chosen ones and that she might not see them again after dinner. The girl stands up and Nico recognizes her to be none other than Hisako. However, Hisako doesn't recognize her. She just walks away, prompting Nico to run after her. Nico's chase eventually leads her deep into the temple. It's only cut short when Fujiwara appears out of nowhere and starts grilling her. However, she manages to keep her cover when one of the kids, along with Noriko, convinces Fujiwara that Miss Grimm just got lost. The Maester buys it, but Noriko starts to suspect that something's up with this Miss Grimm. Later, during dinner, Noriko confronts Nico and tells her that she's literally gonna fry her if she decides to mess with the Children of the Atom. That night, while the rest of the kids sleep, Nico takes the opportunity to contact Futaba. Unfortunately, Nico fails to reach Futaba when Noriko sneaks up behind her and zaps her phone out of her hands. Noriko finally puts two and two together and realizes that Nico is one of May's friends. She suddenly gets all aggressive and attacks Nico, but our girl knows how to handle herself. Nico simply absorbs Noriko's electricity with her staff. As you'd expect, Noriko starts running her mouth, but she immediately put her in her place when Nico says she doesn't know who she's messing with. This makes Noriko mad as she tries to blast Nico with her powers again. And once more, Nico just eats up Noriko's sap with her staff. Nico even adds insult to injury by pretty much telling Noriko that she's not that girl. The best Noriko can do is just get out of her way. Of course, this just annoys Noriko further and she lashes out with another electric blast. This time, Nico uses her powers to dodge and levitate, which makes Noriko super jealous. Nico was just about to get ready to bring the smackdown when one of the other cult members subdues her with a gross tentacle-like limb. Our girl turns around to see Fujiwara and the other Children of the Atom have her surrounded. The next day, Tetsuya and Kanen meet at the local playground. We find out that Futaba and Tetsuya used to date, but more importantly, Tetsuya patches things up with his sister before Kanen receives a message from May telling her that she's headed to the Children of the Atom's temple after Nico stopped answering her calls. So Kanen and Tetsuya rush there as well. They come across Futaba along the way, who's also headed for the temple, and the siblings hop into her car. Meanwhile, we find out that Yukio and her sidekick are already at the Temple of the Children of the Atom's outskirts, waiting to film whatever is about to happen next. Somewhere else, Mei and Mori have also linked up with Futaba and the others as they zoom towards the temple. They then sprang their plan when they get there. This plan involved Tetsuya impersonating a delivery man to draw out the Children of the Atom. It works, as its brainwashed members attempt to bring Tetsuya in after he knocks on their front door, but we soon discovered that our heroes didn't come alone. Mei brought the other X-Men members. They're 6 deep and ready to fight as our heroes face against these indoctrinated nutjobs. We then find out that this whole fight is just a diversion meant to allow Kanen, Mori, and Futaba to sneak into the temple's inner chambers. They do their part and eventually spot an open room with gross tendrils laid on the doorway. Mori senses that Hisako and Nico are inside this room, so the 3 decide to head there. Kanen and Futaba step inside to see Okihiro and the same tendrils extending from all over his body. Hisako is also in the room, unconscious and strapped to a bed with a bunch of tubes hooked to her body. Futaba then spots Nico and they proceed to rescue her from Akihiro's tendrils. Nico thankfully regains consciousness the moment she gets free, but there's still Hisako they have to deal with. Kanen tries to call for Mori's help in rescuing Hisako, but the poor bunny-eared girl is too shell-shocked to move from her spot just outside the doorway. Kanen tries to pull the tubes from Hisako, but Nico yells for her to stop since they might be the only thing keeping her alive right now. It's here we find out that Futaba has powers as she takes off one of her gloves and touches Akihiro's tendrils. This act instantly transports our heroes to the astral plane where they come face to face with Dark Armor and Kageyama. In the real world, Mori gets off her butt when she sees that Akihiro's tendrils have blocked the doorway entirely. In another room, Fujiwara panics when he notices that Kageyama has disappeared from his containment chamber. Meanwhile, just outside the temple, Mei and her crew successfully take back Nico's staff from one of the Children of the Atom. Mei's friends tell her to head straight for Futaba and the others' location while they deal with their opponents. On the astral plane, Kageyama orders Dark Armor to attack our heroes, all the while playing into her insecurities to keep Hisako wrapped around his finger. Curiously, Kageyama notices that he can't read Kanen's mind, as the wild girl attempts to counterattack. It doesn't work though, because Dark Armor grabs her by the neck before she can land a hit. In the real world, Mei and Mori try to rip the tendrils off with their bare hands, but realize that they regenerate every time they're destroyed. With no other option left, Mei tries to call out to Hisako so that she could enter the room. It works, and Mei is able to catch up to the rest of her friends on the astral plane. She then knocks away Dark Armor to free Kanen from her grasp before tossing Nico her staff. They go on the offensive, but Dark Armor remains unharmed. Mei gets desperate and tries to talk some sense into Hisako. Kageyama takes this opportunity to sucker punch our heroes with his powers, but he's surprised to find out it doesn't work when the real Hisako grabs Dark Armor and pulls her out into the real world, and they witness Hisako absorb Dark Armor into her body. Kageyama tries to stop her from doing this, but Hisako has gotten tired of the pudgy creep's crap, so she summons her OG armor powers, shoves the weirdo right into Akihiro's tendrils, and sends Kageyama back into the astral plane. Hisako then follows suit, but she stops for a moment when Mei calls out to her. Mei urges Hisako to come home with them, but Hisako insists that she has to deal with Kageyama if they're all gonna have some peace in their lives. Hisako thanks Mei, and Nico returns her Omamori before she goes back to the astral plane. Just outside, poor little Mori is absolutely terrified after being left alone in the temple's hallway. Things got even worse when Fujiwara spots her calling Mori number 127 before expressing his relief at finding her again. Futaba, Kanen, Mei, and Nico turn towards the doorway to see the maester dangling poor little Mori by her rabbit ears. And if you didn't think that this guy was already a scumbag, he threatens he'll take her out with a needle attached to his index finger if the girls don't tell him where Hisako and Kageyama went. Fearing for their friend's life, the girls tell the freaky cult leader that Hisako and Kageyama had just entered Akihiro's body, but this does nothing to quell the maester's doubts as he accuses our heroes of lying. The maester's just about to stab Mori with his needle when a red beam pierces his arm out of nowhere. He's forced to let go of Mori, and our gang instantly recognizes who launched the attack. It's Natsu, and she's just taken off her Oni disguise to regroup with her friends. Meanwhile, the maester gets all livid and accuses Natsu of being a traitor of the Children of the Atom. On a brighter note, Mori sees her best friend and immediately rushes to Natsu's side. However, their supposedly sweet reunion is cut short when the maester grabs Mori and uses his needle to lob off one of Mori's arms. Natsu sees this and retaliates with more optic blasts that poke holes in the crazed cultist. The girls then check in on Mori as a weakened Maester starts berating Natsu for her treachery. He tries to guilt trip her into coming back to the Children of the Atom, telling Natsu that the cult was the only thing that accepted her when she accidentally took her mother's life. But Natsu isn't falling for that. She wised up and tells the Maester that she's well aware that the only reason the cult took her in was that they could use her. Suddenly, Kanen sees something truly curious when she turns towards Mori. We discover that this bunny-eared girl isn't just your typical person. In fact, her powers bear some similarities to a certain clawed Canadian, regeneration. And with that, our heroes make their escape out of the cult's stronghold. They rush towards the door as May asks the group if they should bring Mori's severed arm on the chance that medical professionals may be able to reattach it, but Mori explicitly states that she can just grow a new one. What's more curious, however, is what happens next. Now, Mori does have regeneration, but it's not just for her. We soon discover that Mori's body has the ability to heal others as well. We learn about this in the most disgusting way possible as the Maester, now alone inside his room, grabs Mori's severed arm and literally chows down on it. In turn, the wounds he sustained from Natsu's optic blasts instantly heal and allow him to recover. Shortly after, the Maester hobbles his way towards Akihiro's room. The so-called first mutant begs the cult leader to end his life, but the Maester has other plans for the poor guy. Right now, he's noticed that Akihiro is bleeding. The Maester catches a drop of Akihiro's blood on his finger and gives it a taste. From there, the cult leader concludes that their secret MYX project has finally reached fruition. 2 weeks pass and it's now August. The whole controversy that has gripped the country has reached its conclusion when news outlets report that authorities have seized the Children of the Atom's hideout. Everything from the human experimentations to the MYX project are now public knowledge. On the other hand, we find out that Yukio's streaming channel has recently been banned from hosting sites in the aftermath of the events of the Children of the Atom's compound. To no one's surprise, the rest of Japan have divided opinions about the entire mutant race. Some think they're all bad news, while others genuinely feel sorry for the poor kids who fell victim to the Children of the Atom's brainwashing initiatives and experiments. We meet a young, presumably ex-member of the Children of the Atom here, an unnamed teenager who has fox ears and a tail. As for the cult, we learn that the Maester has escaped custody while the rest of its members have gone underground. Somewhere else at a Toro Nagashi ceremony, where pretty little water lanterns are set on the river, Nico, May, and Mori reunite. Mori reveals that there was a time when she completely forgot all about her mutant abilities. However, it came back to her in the moment she saw Akihiro at the cult's compound. Even sadder is when we find out that the Maester and the Children of the Atom had pretty much treated Mori like a guinea pig during her time in the cult. As she puts it, they repeatedly cut her up knowing that she would just recover right after. Nico reassures Mori that she's safe now before the girls start talking about the Maester. May wonders if he's dead and gone, but Nico clarifies that their adversary is still somewhere out there. Natsu arrives looking much better than the last time we saw her. She's not even wearing an eye patch anymore, and when Nico asks about her sudden style change, Natsu declares that's all part of her goal to get a brand new start. And with that, the girls hang out at the Matsuri. Of course, they haven't forgotten about one glaring hole staring them right in the face. Where's Hisako? All they know is that she and Kageyama went inside Akihiro during the whole Children of the Atom compound debacle. Apart from that, they're aware that authorities have taken custody of Akihiro, and the last thing Hisako told May was that she was going to look for Tsubasa. All of a sudden, Yukio approaches the girls and tells them that she's aware of the truth as well, the things that have happened that the media just isn't covering. More importantly, Yukio shares more info about what's happening with the general status quo of the cult at the present. For one, she reassures the group that the Maester is indeed still alive. Even worse, Project MYX is still active, and at this moment we also find out that the Children of the Atom are wreaking havoc all over the country in their own little ways. Yukio gives the girls some advice, but only trust what they see for themselves. All this leads to Yukio's point that the only ones who can stop them and protect the rest of the mutant race are the X-Men. Lastly, Yukio gives them a lead about Asako. She instructs the girls to go to Kuriaga Minami Middle School's temple, the same spot where Tsubasa was last seen alive. Our heroes then make their way to the spot only to be greeted by what looks like Hitodama, a vengeful spirit from the Japanese folklore. But it turns out that this Hitodama was just the glow coming from Kanen's sword, and when the girls ask Kanen what she's doing here, she tells them that she's also been investigating this whole Hisako and Tsubasa deal. What gives gives them goosebumps is when they see an apparition of what looks like Tsubasa. This apparition points them towards a nearby tree whose trunk is glowing red from the inside. Kanan registers the tree as a threat, but Mei tells her to stand down when she realizes Sako might be inside it. So the group opens the trunk, and Mei's suspicion is confirmed when they find a sleeping Asako slide out of the tree trunk after they pry it open. Somewhere else, the Maester presides over a gathering of his Children of Adam underlings. He holds a vial of the MYX in his hand and proceeds to inject himself with it. This gives the Maester an instant buzz as he declares the power of the MYX belongs to no one else but him. No one will take it away.